Swinson, do you want a general election?
Well, I want to stop Brexit. I think the best way to do that is having a people's vote on the Brexit deal. But if we have a general election, then I am absolutely up for the fight to stop Boris Johnson. And I think the Liberal Democrats will do well. But I think what's important for our country is that we do not have an election that has a national crisis of crashing out of the EU without a deal, either in the middle of that campaign or in the immediate aftermath. Any election needs to be held in a calm and orderly way, and that means removing that deadline, that threat of crashing out.
But if Boris Johnson brings this to the floor and says, right, I'm calling on a snap general election, will you and will the Liberal Democrats agree to vote and have a general election? You'd take that as an option?
No, we voted against it last night. And I made very clear to the Prime Minister that we need to act in a responsible way. If he really wants a general election, then he should extend Article 50 for the purpose of having a general election so that we can have that debate in a reasoned manner without an air of crisis and emergency around that election.
I know you want to stop Brexit, Jo Swinson, but there are 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit who do feel this is like, I think Ben referred to it earlier on as a never-endum. It's just going on and on and on and on. At least Boris Johnson has said October the 31st, do or die. And he insists he will get a deal. If you say we're not going to have a general election until you extend Article 50 and then people just think it's just never going to come to an end. Your purpose is to do anything you can to stop Brexit. I mean, to be fair, at least you're honest about it.
I am. I'm honest about it. I do want to stop Brexit. But you just said that the Prime Minister is going to get a deal. Well, why is he trying to have a general election? There is a European Council meeting next month. He's the Prime Minister of our country. He's wanted this job for ages. He said he'd get a great deal. So it's his job to go to that European Council and get a great deal. Or was it all bluster? Was he just not serious? Had he not thought this through? Is he about to get found out and that's why he wants a general election instead?
Gisela Stuart, if there's an election on October the 15th, does it at least, if for instance, and I know you're in a very weird position because you're Labour or you're formerly Labour MP, but actually you back Boris Johnson on this, does it, if he has a general election, if he wins, does he at least then know that whatever deal he gets with the EU, he could get it through Parliament? Because that's the sticking point, isn't it?
And I agree with much of Jo's analysis. I think she's right that we are in something of a national crisis. What I don't agree with is what the solution to that is. We currently don't have a parliament where any side is able to govern. If you're in a crisis, you actually need a functioning government. Part of the crisis, which created the crisis, is that the parliamentary democracy used the referendum method to arrive at the decision, and it was clear that Parliament can't deal with the results of referendums. So the answer to this is not to have another referendum, given how divisive the last one was. The answer is to change or give the people a say as to who they want to sit at Westminster and make those decisions. Now, the Labour Party said they wanted to have no deal off the table. Well, that bill has passed. I don't think any party that argues we need to act in the national interest can defend now not having a general election.
One of the frustrations from everyone sitting at home is we've heard so many different opinions and all these politicians at some point or other seem to have changed their mind about what it is that they want. Boris Johnson was saying only yesterday he didn't want a general election. All of a sudden he's going to turn around and say to the general public, this is what we need, it's the only way out, and Labour are being cowards by not doing it. Why should we trust any of them?
And Labour said they wanted a general election.
50
now
times
they
Jeremy
don't want
Corbyn's called for one.
But they have said they do not trust Boris Johnson not to somehow repeal the no-deal, off-the-table legislation if there's a general election now. You know, as a vote leaver, people are frustrated that their votes are not being respected and they cannot trust politicians.
But you will not get over that deficit of trust by not now trusting the people who know what they want to say, OK, dear political parties, you now have to be very clear in your manifestos as you go into general election. And to the credit of the Lib Dems, I think they have been consistent.
Yeah.
I don't
They're
agree
the
with
only
them,
ones.
but they have been consistent. The Tory party is moving to actually quite a clear position where they are. And the challenge for Labour, and that is what really grieves me, is a challenge for Labour. They have to be very clear. And a general election, as soon as possible, will be the best mechanism to change the composition of the House of Commons to come to an agreement.
So you would like a general election on October the 15th?
Yeah,
OK.
I do.
And Jo Swinson, when would you like a general election?
Well, I'm prepared to vote for a general election, which I think the Liberal Democrats will do well in, but this isn't about what's good for the Lib Dems. But what I think needs to happen is that we don't have that immediate crisis of crashing out without a deal. And the EU has said they will grant an extension for the purpose of holding a general election, which would give us the breathing space to have that election and deal with the outcome of that election.
So are you
without
talking about an
accidentally
extension
crashing out.
beyond October the 31st and an election, what, in November, December?
I mean, I think even if we were to have an election in October, we need an extension, because if you look at what has happened in the past, typically it takes 2 to 3 weeks for a government to be formed, a Queen's speech to go through Parliament, and for therefore Parliament to be able to make its view clear on what should happen. And what you don't want is to crash out without a deal in the middle of that situation. Okay. So I think an extension, even a short extension, is necessary for the purpose of holding a general election so that it can be done in an orderly way. But my fear is that Boris Johnson is going for this because he sees it as an opportunity to force a no-deal Brexit in our country.
One last comment from Gisela.
But Jo, if the most damaging thing at the moment is uncertainty, then the sooner we put an end to that uncertainty and the sooner we call a general election, the better. So let's have it in the middle of October, because the uncertainty, the division, the anger will not have changed one iota however long we wait.
And of course you assume, Gisela, that general election will resolve the issue, and I just say to you that in 2017 it didn't, whereas I think at least a people's vote would.
All right,
2016 it didn't.
We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Jo Swinson, thank you very much. Gisela Stuart, it's good to have you here with us in the studio this morning.